Welcome everybody to another video of Vinyl Addict. This is Chili and this is a flashback to 1979. Now, before I get into this, please don't forget to hit the like button, comment on this video, share this video, and if you still haven't, please subscribe to the channel by hitting the notification bell for updates. Okay, so with that out of the way, I have 35 records. I felt that I should just keep it consistent. Last time I did 1983, I went to 35 records. Let's just do the same here. And the criteria, again, is just what was going on in 1979. It was looking at it, taking out all these records, the debuts, and the old-timers going out and whatnot. And, the genres are coming and going, like funk and disco are kind of like fading out, and punk is kind of fading out. In comes like, what we will see in the 80s as far as like, you know, um, solo artist superstars, that's coming in. And so without further ado, let's start this. Okay, so again, also there's just going to be some artists on here that were probably popular and had a hit and one hit wonder, and like, who was that? And there you go. So with that being said, let's start off with Nick Lowe, Labor of Lust album, Cruel to Be Kind. This is a solo artist that was from the band Rockpile. He wrote this song for Rockpile. They didn't want it, so it became a big hit in America. I had the 45. Okay, so some new wave coming in. Gary Newman, Pleasure Principle, the song Cars. Kind of sounds, the album sounds very Kraftwerk meets Bowie. Buzzcocks, some punk still. And this is a compilation of their singles and their B-sides. Great stuff. Debut again, the B-52s. So this band will be very huge in the 80s. But right here we got Rock Lobster and Planet Claire. Really good. Huge smash, taking out the end of the 70s, ushering in the new kind of new wave stuff and the kind of punk rock, kind of new wave popular. Kind of like this band was probably like the for a debut was really big with My Sharona and Good Girls Don't, Frustrated were the singles, but I like songs like She's So Selfish. I thought that was great. The whole album actually is really good on that. Another debut, The Pretenders' first album. This had Precious, Mystery Achievement, Brass in Pocket. That song is, they could do everything from like punk to reggae on this one. And Stop Your Sobbing, that was produced by Nick Lowe from the first album. Boomtown Rats. So Bob Geldof and his Irish mates here with I Don't Like Mondays. Very popular song at that time. Okay, now here is another debut, Lena Lovitch. Now, she had the song here, Lucky Number. And this is an artist. She was born in America but moved to the UK and started her band there at 14, 13. However, it's sort of new wavy, and then there's some little gothy things to it. The song Lucky Number, if you remember that song, it's really cool. I like the little chorus with the arpeggio guitar in it. It's really cool. Gang of Four. Okay, Entertainment. This is their debut. We're going into more post-punk here. And the Cars, Candy-O. Okay, this is their second album. The single on here was Let's Go. It's All I Can Do. It's kind of very new wavy. This is kind of like they're a mixture of just regular rock and, kind of new wave kind of sounds. And, you would hear this kind of music later on in the 90s as Rick Ocasek, the lead singer of this band and leader of this band, produces Weezer's first album. And you could kind of hear like songs with like Buddy Holly. You could hear that kind of Cars kind of influence in it. So we got the Dream Police also now by Cheap Trick. Now they're adding keyboards to their music and everything on that title track, but they also have songs like Gonna Raise Hell, I love this whole album. Way of the World. I Know What I Want. That's a good song. So Cheap Trick. Now we have to have a soundtrack here. And this one, More American Graffiti. Now, this is the reason why I picked this one is because, okay, so all the songs on here are like 60s, right? 60s songs like Just Like a Woman, performed by Dylan, Aretha Franklin, Respect, Strange Brew by Cream, so it seems like this was the 70s, the early 70s seems like it was nostalgic for the 50s. Like in early 70s you have the first soundtrack, and everything is always like a decade late. So as we're entering into the 80s, everyone's always looking back a decade prior. So we're looking back to the 60s now, and by the mid 60s the Grateful Dead shall return, the Monkees will return, all this 60s stuff will start being more popular again. Vietnam War films like Platoon, and Born on the 4th of July. And so it's already starting with this album. So, but it's not bad. There's some good stuff on here, other than that, She's Not There by the Zombies. It's, just like what Forrest Gump would be later on. But I think the songs on there are really good. And speaking of Dylan, what he was doing was making Christian music, I guess. He just converted, and Gotta Serve Somebody was the song that he went out and played and campaigned, like on SNL. And that would be his only time he would play on SNL, would never go back on that show. And I Believe in You, and what's the other song? Gotta Change My Way of Thinking is a good one. And When You're Gonna Wake Up. Bob Dylan, Slow Train Coming. Now, a new wave of British metal was coming in, and this band led the forefront. Saxon. This is their first album with Biff Byford on vocals, of course, but this album didn't really make an impact. But they were, part of this movement, and a really important part of this movement. So Saxon. Now, this band doesn't consider themselves part of that movement. They said they came in a little before that, but we got Motorhead. They had 2 albums this year. The first one here was Overkill. Then 6 months later, they would put out Bomber. But, this introduced the double kick drum on Overkill, which a lot of thrash bands later on would started from their Motorhead. Now, these bands that started coming out from the punk scene in the late 70s, and post-punk bands and whatnot, were in the audiences of, somewhat of like Jimi Hendrix. Sting went to see Jimi Hendrix when he was younger. But, they came around near the end of the punk thing, and so they're going to be more popular in the 80s. The Police's second album. Same with Blondie. They started from the CBGB scene, and now they're, going to be big time in the in the 80s. And that same applies with the hard rock bands like Van Halen. This is their second album. I like this one a lot. On the first album in 78, he did the Eruption, introduced the world to Eruption. And this one, he does a acoustic guitar little solo called Spanish Fly, which is really pretty. So Van Halen. Other band still going strong is Foreigner. I like this one. This one had Head Games, Dirty White Boy, I'll Get Even With You, which was a really good song. And this would pretty much be their last album before they get really poppy with number 4 with Urgent, and I've Been Waiting for a Girl Like You, and become all, pretty much pop infested. But so this is the last one. It's kind of down and dirty. Now, some of these old timers from the 70s hard rock bands, they're either going to different directions or calling it quits, or they've reached their expiration date. Now, Gamma 1. This is Ronnie Montrose from the band Montrose. Okay, so he starts this band, and he has this song on here, Thunder and Lightning is gonna shut you down. That was like the big song on here. So that's what's going on with that band. Zeppelin. of course, is calling it quits. Their drummer passed on, Bonzo, and so this was their last album, Into the Outdoor. Came in a paper bag. See, this is like, it's an end of an era for a lot of things in the 70s, 79. It's really interesting when you look back at it. So here's AC/DC, the last of the Bon Scott era, you know, so, and the first, there's a lot of, last and a lot of firsts. And here's the first one with John Mutt Lang coming in and producing them. They would do the, of course, follow up to this, which is a huge success, Back in Black. But this is the last farewell with Bon Scott with Highway to Hell. And so some other bands going to different directions. Okay, so Richie Blackmore, no longer with Ronnie James Dio playing any of this kind of like metal, proggy kind of rock. They get Graham Bonnet, who's a soul singer, and he takes the band more into a commercial avenue. And what they have here is Since You've Been Gone, which is a big smash single. It's a cover and All Night Long. And so this is what Richie wanted, and so this is where he took Rainbow, so they get Another Life. And as the whole disco thing is starting to fade out, Kiss kind of jumps on the bandwagon, kind of late on that. And so they do I Was Made for Loving You. This is this album here, Dynasty, is it has some good songs on here. Sure Knows Something was a really good one. It's kind of funky, but they do 2000 Man, which I like, which is a Stones cover, and Ace Frehley sings that one. So here is still some more disco, of course, kind of disco funky stuff, Funky Town from Lips Inc. You could hear that song on the Mel Brooks film, History of the World Part 1. Just a lot of useless information I have. So, Pat Benatar's debut. Now, We Live for Love was sort of that kind of disco thingy here, but then she does Heartbreaker as well. So, you know, she's kind of paying homage to what's fading out and just kind of bringing in, you know, the new blood of rock and roll. And Heartbreaker, here's another Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, class of 2022. And she also does I Need a Lover, John Cougar Mellencamp song. So where are these soul funk bands going? Some of the old ones from the 70s, like Kool and the Gang, they're still having hits, but they're not as, you know, overtly funky. They're kind of like popish. They're kind of like polishing up their sound and, you know, making kind of disco-y kind of songs with Ladies Night and Too Hot. But Ladies Night, you can't, that bass line, you can't escape it. You know, it's awesome. And Too Hot, which was another big hit here, which would be used by Coolio in his song. I forgot what the song was. He's like riding a bike or something like that, but it's that song. Okay, and so we also have the Gap Band too. Okay, Stepping Out and Oops Upside Your Head. I Don't Believe You Want to Get Up and Dance was a big memorable hit here. This is still the time of those funk bands are just making long songs like the Commodores before. So the Commodores, they ruled in the 70s, and so they're kind of going poppy and everything, and then Lionel will leave and be again a superstar in the 80s, you know. And this is a band here. They're still, you know, got some other tricks up their sleeves coming up in the 80s, but this is a great one right here, Gap Band 2. Now here's another funk soul band, Switch. Okay, so I Call Your Name is the big single on here, and the two brothers here from they're Bobby DeBarge and the other Thomas DeBarge. That's his name. And okay, this one of course passes away of AIDS, and he had a whole bunch of bad drug problems. And same with Tom, but their younger siblings become DeBarge, you know, and do Rhythm of the Night, and you know they have some big success. But these are the big brothers from the 70s, and The reason why they're called Switch, because if you saw them in concert, each member will switch positions and play a different instrument like 2 or 3 times. So they're just playing musical chairs. They're all playing. They could all play drums. They could all play at a high level too. So great musicianship, this band. Switch. Okay, so here we go. Rick James. This is the one that probably the last, when we talk about long funk songs here, there's like 8 songs on here. No, actually there's 7 songs. So yeah, they're all pretty lengthy. That's how that funk was back then. They just stay on the groove and that's it. You know what I mean? And the party's on. So Busting Out High on Your Love Suite was really good. And of course, he would be more successful in the 80s with, Super Freak and that kind of thing. But this is the last of his 70s stuff. And opening up for him was this guy. So there's pretty much a new sheriff in town coming in here. I Want to Be Your Lover. This song was a top 10 success. Why You Want to Treat Me So Bad. And still had some rock songs on here, but then there was some funk in here like Sexy Dancer. However, this is just a preview of more to come. Like I said, there's going to be more solo artists that are successful, and Prince will be one of them. Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, that's going to take over in the 80s, and he's making his mark right here. So, Funkadelic. So, now these old funk guys, this is his last pretty much big hit. He would do some solo stuff like Atomic Dog, George Clinton, but Knee Deep is on here. That would get Second Life by De La Soul as they sample that song on Me, Myself, and I, but the long 11-minute version. Is it 11 minutes on here? I know it's really long. This is Uncle Jam also was a single on here. Oh, it's 15 minutes and 23 seconds. See, that's what I'm talking about. They just got those long songs. And the thing is, so these funk bands and disco bands are kind of, they're disappearing right here. And this will be the future Sugar Hill Gang. Okay, so Rapper's Delight, which they're using the music of Chic on here. And they're pretty much rapping over this. The first pretty much big rap success song. And so, this is going to be taken over as well in the 80s. Not as much in the 80s, but more in the 90s. So these kind of funk bands and soul bands, they're kind of disappearing. The only way you'll hear them later on in the 90s is through samples. But so this is the future right here. And this is Sylvia Robinson. This is her label, and she just was inducted into the Hall of Fame because of this. So now we're ending up to the top 3, and just like the Sugar Hill Gang that's something new and something. This is like the peak, but then it's sort of it's an end of an era again coming. You could kind of see it here with the Clash's epic London Calling album. This is where everything kind of like they do all kinds of different things on this album. You can't have 1979 without this. And so London Calling. And so another goodbye, end of an era. The Eagles, The Long Run. So this is they end this era on a high. They will return like in the 2000s or so, right? But this is it. I mean, they're going to be doing like Don Henley will be a big solo artist because that's what the 80s is. Solo artists. Glenn Frey will be a big solo artist in the 80s. So they're kind of breaking up now, and which is sad. So like Robert Plant from Zeppelin, he's going to have some success as a solo artist as well. So that's where we're all going. And the last but not least, another goodbye, but the end of an era of 1979, we have Pink Floyd's The Wall. And the last of an album like this, and it's very epic and has the movie to back it up and everything. And Roger Waters is just, you know, his last. Well, there is another album after this, but you know, as far as the popularity and the epicness, this is it, The Wall. So that is 1979 in a nutshell. Leave me a comment below. What are your thoughts on 1979? It was a year just like, yeah, things are just kind of being ushered out, and you could kind of see where it's going with the solo superstars that are going to be coming in. And, you know, and other bands will not survive this, you know, because the MTV thing. But, you know, it was a great end and beginning. That is what I see 1979. And with that, I'll shut up and I'll see you guys in the next video.